Hello everybody, here's something I want to show kind of to give an idea of how to hook things up. Something I didn't realize before. On this diagram over here you have the two positives that are going into the control box up here. Okay, this positive is the main positive that goes into both. Okay, when you press a button, a positive will go out to this coil and will also go to the motor. So this controls the motor. It tells the motor to turn on and off. So if you want to have the motor control, depending on the rating on this solenoid, which I don't have the data sheet for, if it requires a small signal voltage, like less than an amp or so, then you can take this input and tie it and have it go into your control box. Now I got a control box here, so the idea is this. In this control box you have an orange wire, which is right here, and that, if you look on the box, orange is your common fused 10 amps with a relay on it. So this turns on and off. So what I would do if I was hooking the same thing that this other guy did, something I didn't realize until I looked at it a little closer. It was late last night when I was reverse engineering all this stuff, and these are all your control signals. You're not going to use the red unless you want solid power constantly to something, which you don't. So this will turn your power on and off. So you hook positive to this, okay? And what that'll do is that'll give you a positive voltage. You can hook this to your battery if you want. That's fine. That'll send positive voltage into one side of your relay. When you press the button on your controller here, when you press any one of these buttons other than the start and stop, start will turn on the power, will allow power to be available, and each one of these buttons closes a relay to put power from here to any one of these at any given time. Now, what you have to realize is that you need two power lines going from one of these wires. Say you're using for up and down. This goes to one coil. This goes to the other coil for your up and down. Okay, you're going to need another wire from that to the positive terminal of the solenoid that has white on it. So if you're not going to use this and you use the remote, take this off. Remove all the wires, you don't need it. Or disconnect it here and tape it up, leave it dangling if you ever want to use it in the future. So from here, you'd have a wire connected here and here. And what that'll do is when you press this button that says up, the yellow, which is up, is going to have positive applied to it, positive voltage applied to it. And it will go to both the red, in the diagram where the red wire goes, you'll have positive here, and then you'll have positive going down to here. This solenoid here will activate the motor and pump the fluid in, and this is a coil that opens the valves to allow that pumping fluid to go in for moving the cylinder up. So that is how you wire a dump trailer. But you don't need all those. You don't need any diodes, any extra components. There shouldn't be a reason to have all that. Now, if you wanted to, you could find another connector that mates to this one, and wire everything in from this connector into your control box. You'll just create a simple pigtail that'll connect to this to your control box properly. So, in other words, the white wire will go in, connect into the orange. This white wire will connect to your. I'm sorry, not the orange. The output of your up and down. Okay, so this one and these two will both go to that. It will have a wire that both goes to this positive solenoid connection, and then each one will also go to their respective spot. Now, the reason why I say that each one goes to here, because this has to have power as well as these have to have power at the same time. So this turns on the motor, this coil gets turned on exactly at the same time. internally in here it does that. When you press this button, both this black wire will apply power to this white and the red at the same time when you press the up button. When you press the down button, it'll be the green and the white. That's how this works. So knowing how this works will allow you to hook it up. But if you get another connector, you can pigtail it on. And you can buy these connectors. There's little numbers on them. You can look them up online and buy them. And then you'll have a nice mating connector that goes to your box. If you ever want to go back to this box, say your remote control receiver fails for any reason, you can put this back on. You just plug it back in. So that's how it's hooked up. So you need to have the positive from the solenoid connected together with the yellow wire for the up control. So you'll have on your box, not this one, but on your control box, for instance, you will have, let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say this is the wire. This is the wire where the solenoid's going to. This is that white wire we're talking about. So this one would go to that yellow or that white or that solenoid positive, but as well goes to your control valve. Okay, the up one. And you know, everybody's thing's different, so sorry, it keeps falling down. So anyway, so that's basically how that is. And so each one of these wires that you're going to use as a control, for instance, say for your up and down, and we're just talking strictly this the up and down, not we're not talking about like your winch. Your winch is different. So on this thing, because there's two things that require power at the same time, you're going to have a Y cable that goes from green and this one, so that each one will have a Y cable that will each apply. It'll go from here. It'll split into Y. One goes to the solenoid positive, and the other one goes to the coil for your down. This will be the down. This will be up. Same thing. One will go to your up, the other one will go to the solenoid. When the relays will prevent power from going opposite directions, so it won't do it unless you press both buttons at the same time. Then you'll freak out the system. You don't want to do that. So, and if you want to use a diode, that's fine. You can put a diode in going to the thing, so that if accidentally you finger fudge it and you accidentally hit both at the same time, or some kid plays with it, that'll be a way of protecting it from getting two voltages going in the same place. But that's how it initially is connected. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to open this up so you guys can see the inside. It's kind of a pain. It's got these little white things on there. It makes it spring-loaded. So the idea in here is you've got your receiver module, you've got a bridge rectifier, and that means that you can connect power to this any direction you want. It won't matter, just as long as you don't mix up your wires going to your relays. So these wires don't mix up, but these can be either or. It doesn't matter. So if you wanted power connected to this orange wire, you connect it to positive of whichever of these wires you connect to positive, and you're good to go. So you can connect them that way. Now, this first relay here on the left, that's the one that activates this one and allows power to be applied to all the relays. This is a bypass. This puts power to the relays permanently. So in other words, no matter what you do, there's always going to be power on these relays, and you don't have to hit the start button. So, but I think it's a good idea to use the start button so you don't accidentally hit one of these buttons until you're ready to actually start moving things. So anyway, there was a transformer in some of these that they talked about online, some of the diagrams they talked about. There's usually a transformer in here. This one, it bypasses it and goes straight into the bridge rectifier. Without the transformer, you can't hook up to like 48 or the higher voltages. So you make sure your unit, if it's like mine, then don't put anything more than 24 or 12 volts on it. I think 24 is okay, but I wouldn't go that high. As a matter of fact, if I look, I didn't look at this capacitor, but this capacitor has a rating on it, so don't exceed this capacitor rating. When you pull it apart, it's 3 screws, 1, 2, 3 here, and this whole circuit comes out. You can look at it, and you can actually see component ratings. Let me see if I can see that real quick with a flashlight. Look in here. Looks like it's 35 volts. So yeah, it's 35 volts, so that means no more than 24 volts. They overrate capacitors so they don't blow on you. So in this particular instance, I wouldn't put more than 24 volts on this thing. because you'll wind up frying the circuitry and it will never work. And it's be kind of difficult to fix because I don't know what this is, and I don't know what if I had to replace this, it would cost a lot of money for me to replace. It'd be easier just to buy a $35 new unit with the remote and everything. These things aren't that expensive, so if you fry it, just go out and buy a new one. Lesson learned: keep the fuses if the fuses are still good, and the relays are reusable. If you do fry it, you can actually fix relays by pulling them out and putting new ones in. They're 3 pins on these. They're like a single switch. That's all these are. Okay. All of these other relays are related to these outputs. So, but this one here with the sticker on it, this big sticker, this actually is for the orange wire. Okay. So there you go. There's the whole nuts and bolts of this thing. It's still a little greasy, even though I cleaned it pretty good. Still got a little grease on it. And that's how you hook this up to this dump trailer. Okay, so but like I said, you need to have 2 wires going to the solenoid and to the red wire. So basically, every wire that you're connecting to the up, all the wires that you're going for these little coils that are out here, you also need a wire that turns this on too, because without the pumping action, it's just the fluid's just gonna just flow, and it's not going to have any pressure. You need the pressure. That's what the pump's for. So I'm going to scroll down here. You got this is your motor. This is actually runs the pump, and I believe this is your reservoir for your fluid. These valves control what direction the fluid goes into the cylinder, and it's the big giant thing with what looks like the shiny silver rod that moves in and out. That's your cylinder. For those who don't know. So it says solenoid valves, right? So this solenoid valve is connected to this wire, this one's connected to this wire, and the other side's connected to ground. All this is like a little round coil of wire. That's it. When the coil is activated, it allows fluid to flow through it. When it's deactivated, fluid stops flowing. So you open one valve when you want the cylinder to travel up. You open the other valve when you want it to go the opposite direction. Now here's an actual picture of one. It's very similar to the one I've seen in other videos, just a little bit different wiring. So this thing has a dedicated battery. It runs the motor. The motor has a pump on it that takes this fluid and pumps it out through these wires out to the cylinder. Okay. This is the remote control, and this is the whole wire. Okay. Ignore this for a moment. You're going to try and hook this up with one of these other units. So one of these wires on top of the solenoid, the one that's not going to ground, there's ground. I believe this is ground. I believe this is positive. You have your positive battery coming in here, and then you have positive cable going to the motor. And it's just this big strap, but it's actually positive, so be very careful. That will hurt you if you ground out with that, because it'll be this battery discharging through you. So one of these terminals would be labeled positive and negative. Now this picture is not showing it, so you'll have to look at it. So basically, back at the schematic, you have a positive and a negative. You'll see which one, the wires that go into ground, there's too many things in the way, I can't tell which one's ground. So whichever one of these that the wire's not ground, you just unplug it. Okay, that'll disable this guy. And then let's assume that this is the positive terminal, so you'll have a wire from here to here, from here to here. So I'm trying to think how to do this. Trying to describe this without doing it is very, very difficult. So basically, back up here. So you want to make sure that you have power that goes to this wire, okay, and power to this terminal. So what will happen is that you're not going to hook a power wire from the battery or anywhere else. It's going to be the output wire, like the yellow wire of your remote, which will have power on it when it's energized. When the relay closes, you'll have power there. When the relay opens, no power. It'll be like disconnected completely. So the yellow wire from your remote will hook to one of these on its positive, and to one of this. Let's assume that this is the positive terminal. So the positive terminal. So you'll have a wire from that yellow wire that comes out, connects to both of these. Then on the green wire, you'll have one connected here, and then another one connected here. And the reason for that is because you need to have power on this and this at the same time in order for the pump to pump the fluid through this valve out into the cylinder. Okay, you have one of these wires connects to one of these valves. I mean hoses. This hose goes to one of these. This hose goes to the opposite. I don't know which one it is because I don't make these for a living. So anyway, so yellow will go here and then here. Green will come out, it'll go here and then here. But only connecting to the positive terminals of all of this. So the positive here, the positive of this one, the positive of this one is what I'm talking about. Leave the grounds on. Leave them alone. You don't need to touch them. What that'll do is it'll allow you to have the up button, down button activate this. And it'll only work, again, if you're hitting on the remote. If you hit stop, nothing will work. You can hit up, down, any button. There'll be no power applied to these. If you hit start, okay, that activates the power on the orange line into the relays so that these can have power going out when you press the appropriate button, up, down, any one of these. Okay, so that's how you hook it up without the diodes. Now, the diodes can be used for safety reasons if you want. It's up to you. There's nothing wrong with using them for safety. You could hook a diode in so that the wire coming off here, you don't get any any positive that leaks out. You know, if you want to put a diode in line with each of your wires, that's fine. It'll work just fine as long as you connect the diode appropriately. So hopefully that helps people figure out how to do this. It took me a while to wrap my head around how this thing works. It's not that difficult. It's just I've never seen one before, never played with it. But that's basically how it works. And be very careful with your wires. Do everything nice and neat. Make sure you use these covered terminals. Don't use open ones because if a wire drops down in there, it could short out. That sort of thing. So keep everything nice and neat in there. You can put your remote control off to the side somewhere. In my case, it doesn't have the mounting thing on the back, so what I'd have to do is probably put it in another case that clamps down to around the outside of it, and then mount it in the case somewhere. In this case, I would mount it somewhere off in this direction. I'd have the wire. And the thing is this is the pigtail they were talking about, and if you find a connector that matches this, then you could wire right straight into all these wires and not have to worry about, you know, unplugging anything. So that is an option if you want to do, if you're capable of doing that. So, but there you go. That's all I have. That's what I wanted to show everybody on how to do that, how to figure all that stuff out, and hopefully things will go well for everybody. Thank you.